Hello, everybody. We have guests with me today. We have a very interesting topic. It can be debatable. So now we just I wanted to get some opinions on that, and you need to have some strong opinions. So that's why we have today new guests. The topic is going to be about privacy between couples. Do couples can or have the right to check each other's emails, phones? They have access to the email, to the phone, and we're going to be talking more about the privacy between the couples. Stick around.
To make fun of my side, my weak
No, I have
side.
a very strong side. So, what are your initial thoughts, guys, about the topic? Anybody has any questions or specific anything about like the um, privacy between couples? Any thoughts?
Would you like to start?
Thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very important to separate privacy and boundaries. I think that everyone needs a personal space, so a space where they can just have their own personal time, their own me time. So I don't think that even though you're dating, I believe that everyone should have that secure space to just, be by themselves, do what they want without anyone peering into. It's not about keeping secrets or what. It's about boundaries and it's about personal space to.
Mm,
It's very therapeutic and for yourself. Yeah,
And that opens the doors for cheating, doesn't
not really.
it? Your thoughts, Edgy?
I see. I agree about the boundaries part, and I also think that, trust is a very, very, very big thing, right? If you don't have trust in a relationship, how? Like,
Yeah.
if you want to just like check each other's phone, how's that gonna work? You're
Mm.
gonna constantly keep each other on their toes. Like, how does that work in a relationship?
Well, it just I can tell you because like okay, so on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays we swap phones, and I'll check mine, you check mine, I'll check yours.
What's the purpose of that?
Yeah.
Um, just curious about what do you do, and I want to know more about you.
So you want to check my phone on what I told Jeff last weekend?
Why not? Yeah, want to know your friends, want to meet them, see how it's going on. Why not? So how? What do you guys think? Is that a good argument? Is that a valid argument? Does that help the relationship? Does that hinder the relationship? And that's what we really want to discuss. It's like what's good about that for the relationship? Or what's not good? How does it help the relationship? How does it not help the relationship? Because I can argue it can help the relationship because you're showing you're transparent, you have nothing to hide. Understand that you have the boundaries part, but you can also show that I have nothing to hide. That builds what? Trust. That helps to build the trust. But is that healthy for the relationship? Is there any different ways on how we can build the trust? And that's something else we can talk about.
Sure. But there's also a difference between how you're asked, how it's coming off as, right? You can check my phone, there's nothing to hide, is one thing. Another thing is like, okay, say for example, there's a couple, right? And one's in the kitchen, one's in the bedroom, the phone of the other person is in the kitchen, okay? And they get a text, right?
From Lisa. Lisa is a very famous name for her.
It's interesting that you'd use the name, but okay. Okay. Okay, there's a text from Lisa, all right? And he says, hey, it's okay, you can go ahead and check my phone or whatever.
And
Okay.
who's Lisa? Yeah, sorry. Guys.
I don't know, you tell me. Okay, so that's one thing. But on the other hand, it's like, hey, give me your phone, let me check it. Like, okay, what do you want to see? No, I just want to know. Okay, but what do you want to know? Who are you talking to? Like, why would you?
And the
it
more,
should be
and the more you resist it, the more you're gonna make yourself look like you're hiding something.
Exactly.
And that's not good for a
No.
relationship either, right?
It's not about that. It's about everything is about trust here,
Right.
right? Again, the difference between when checking phone. It's not about like, oh, just check that text. Okay, that's fine. But like, let me check your phone. It's just not okay.
I think it's also about like feeding the mistrust and the anxiety. You know, when you allow the person to check your phone one time, you're kind of opening the door to even more behaviors that might infringe upon your privacy and your personal boundaries. It's like a foot in the door, you know. So there are better ways to build trust, which maybe we can discuss about later. But I definitely wouldn't consider feeding the anxiety and the fear with by supplementing it, by allowing your partner to just check your phone out of fear and mistrust all the time.
Any thoughts from the audience? Yes. Oh my goodness, everybody raising their hand. Yes. Yes.
But don't you think that to check your phone, not actually maybe once in a while, would help them gain trust on you? Okay, they could be checking on your phone because of their past. Maybe they could have cheated on this, like very traumatized.
Yeah.
Maybe, let's say they're working on it still, but they needed that to gain trust on you.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you say to that?
And another thing I would like to add on, I would say in this generation, it's a totally different generation where people cheat a lot. It's like a common thing. So that adds up.
Yeah. And if I may add to that, it doesn't really have to have the person being in another relationship. And they had a failing relationship or the previous relationship had an affair or anything. It could be that person's experience. They just dealt with a lot of betrayals. Could be friends, could be parents, could be siblings, could be anything. They just didn't have the chance to develop the trust. And so that's what they need from you. Are you guys willing to allow that to happen? Would that help the relationship?
Mm.
I guess there would be healthier ways to build the trust. And like Shamila said, with the whole, having bad past experience, there are definitely more healthier ways that you can build the trust instead of saying, okay, here, check my phone if you don't trust me.
Yeah, yeah.
This should help.
And I think that your partner's past experience should not a person's past should not affect your partner's future. You know, just because someone has a bad past, the person that you're with does not is not the he is not your past exes. You know, he is a different person and he does not deserve the baggage that you carry from your past experiences into this experience. Not fair for him. So I believe that we're all really aware, and we have to be more self-aware and accountable for our own mental health. And if we have any sort of concerns that we might feel, we can take accountability and take steps for it, like therapy, and all these kind of services. And we don't burden our partner with our mistrust and our past experience, because obviously your partner didn't do anything to deserve the mistrust, And I think if you don't trust someone, why are you with that person in the first place?
Right, and that's a valid point as well. I do agree to that as well. And I like what you said about I think both of you said like there's a limit and there is a possible and a healthier way to build the trust. What are some of the healthier ways to build the trust?
Communication.
Okay, and that's what I'm asking for.
Okay.
Give me your phone so I can communicate with you better.
No.
So that's my form of communication. So
You can't use
help
props.
answer that.
You can't use props, okay?
Okay.
You sit down with each other and you talk. You may think that, oh, you're just having a conversation, you're just talking, but honestly, if you really think about it, and if it's done the right way, talking is so powerful.
Yeah.
It is the most powerful tool.
Right. Communication, talking. What else? How else can we build trust? Can we move to the building the trust in a healthy way, or is there any questions about? Because I saw earlier 2 hands and 3, 4 hands actually.
What really is checking your phone? Is it like you each have the phone locked and you don't know the password for each other's phones, or is it like intentionally just going through someone's phone even though you have access to it to search for information?
You can actually there's a setup or some kind of way to set up that your phone is accessible by the whole family. So you know who's looking at what and looking at their photos and their social media and their location and where they're about. You can open that with a certain numbers, and that would be shared. So that was just an option. So I don't have to really take your phone to know and see the messages. I can access your phone from my phone, and I can see messages on your phone. But if you block me, then I cannot see it. I was like, oh, what's going on there? And that's a possibility. So that's about checking the phone. Does that answer
Yeah,
your
it's
comment?
like
Okay.
the definition of what is checking the phone.
Yeah, that's pretty much looking at messages. Who did you call? Looking at invitations. You know, actually, you can search the messages for a certain word or anything. Meet. You know, and you can like see if they're meeting somebody. You can also check someone's phone and see where their location is, right? So if they're blocking, so then is that a good, if one of the partners is asking for that transparency, and transparency is important for relationship, to what extent? I think that's what we're discussing. And also the privacy is to what extent? And drawing that balance, drawing that balance and discussing that preferred way of communicating. I think that's what we're talking about here. And that's how we can build trust, by communicating. Any other thoughts or question? Do you have a question in addition to that? I thought I saw your hand earlier. You lost a question. Oh, bummer. It's all right. We can hope that it comes back again. Anyone would like to share their thoughts? Should we stop talking about this? Okay. Okay, so you are interested to know more. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to check that. Okay, so now you're talking about communication, you talked about talking. So what else can we do to build trust?
Guess just, you know, when you're keeping the other person happy and content, by maybe spending time with them, by doing things they like, by doing things you like, just together, spending time, they know, then there's so much affection between the two. You know that there's no reason to want to not trust and check the other's phone.
Yeah.
So I would say spending time with each other, quality time, also could help.
Mm,
Yeah.
that would build trust.
It might.
All right. How about if I were to say, we need to be really mindful that communication is really good, and at the same time, we want to be mindful that we do the right thing so we don't trigger the need for that transparency to go beyond the boundaries. One of it is really the consistency.
Right.
So the person need to be consistent. They need to be honest. Because if they're not honest, that opens the door. Can I see your phone? Right? I mean, honesty
I
is
agree.
really
Yeah,
important.
yeah, very important.
Honesty is very important. I mean, if I had someone that I don't want my spouse or my partner to see, I can say I would really appreciate if you give me privacy on this one. I'll let you know in the right time. That's being honest. That's integrity,
Mm.
wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Would you feel comfortable if your partner asked you that and told you that? If you suspected something inconsistent and you're like, whoa, what's going on? Came at 2 o'clock in the morning last night. That's inconsistent, right? That's inconsistent. So what's going on? Would your partner accept? The answer is like, you can say something, I apologize for being late. I know this is not me. I usually at home by 1:30. But today last night I came 2 o'clock, so it's a bit late.
30 minutes. What happened there?
And I would really appreciate it if you just give me some privacy on this one. I really can't share. Would your partner accept? I mean, not necessarily your partner personally. You don't need to disclose that. But do you think a person's partner would accept that?
It depends on the person. Depends on the trust they
Right. So
have.
this is a circumstance that can really put the relationship in check, right? So this is one area that can cause the relationship to be like, there's something here that's not consistent. So that is when communication needs to be more effective. And that's the opportunity where we can. Is everything okay? Yeah. We lost the camera again. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we'll just continue. How about that's all right. Just fix it. Sorry. We're just gonna continue. And one of the things that can also help the communication is to be open for the partner also to speak up. They cannot just hold back and be resentful and wait for something to go wrong, and they can bring up, oh, you came at 2 o'clock in the morning, you didn't say anything, but I can't come at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's none of your business. So that's resentful behavior. I mean, if the relationship is going to go that's a very, very sharp turn, or maybe even a U-turn in a relationship that can put the relationship in jeopardy. So the small request of privacy, if it's accepted, then it needs to be accepted and put to rest, and allow your partner to have that privacy. And whenever it's the right time, I mean, it could be that it could be that I'm like me dealing with my brother, for example, and he was busted for dealing drugs, and I really don't feel comfortable to share that with my wife, right? And I was like, I really keep this private until we see the court, whatever, right? And they decide, I want this to be private. I don't want to have my wife to know about it. I don't want to have my girlfriend or my partner to know about it. They would know their family, and they'll start to question my integrity and all that. So I don't want to open that door. And if that is the honesty, so what allows this to continue in the relationship is honesty that has existed in the past throughout the relationship. That's going to give you the credit that would allow you to be trusted and giving you that privacy. But if you're not consistent, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. If this is repeating every week, you have a private in a conversation that you want to have, that's not going to help the relationship. But exceptions are good. So we need to be reasonable also. So yes, we do want our privacy sometimes. We want so therefore we compensate that by being transparent and drawing the boundaries when it's needed, and not really to make it a special case very often.
Right.
What do you think of that?
I agree with everything that you said, actually.
Right?
Yeah.
It makes sense,
It
right?
makes complete
And
sense.
it's a balanced thing between the two couples.
Yeah.
Because as much as you want that privacy, as much as your partner wants that stability in the relationship. They don't want these have exceptions really often regularly happening, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't really happen like that. It doesn't help the relationship. So we can say that both can contribute to the problem, and both of them can contribute
To the
to
solution.
the solution.
True.
What are your thoughts on that? Any comments? You guys agree, disagree, think there's missing something, a bigger piece of it? You look like you're in deep thought.
They're all thinking about it.
I agree with the fact that communication is the key. But I'm thinking whether you would be able to show us how the flow of the communication would be.
Ooh, that's the how. So here we're talking about the what. The how is really, it's not really easy to do in a talk, because that's a very, very good question. And that's really what's missing in most of the communication. It's the how. Everybody knows about communication and where we communicate, but they end up in a fight. They end up in separating. They end up in walking out, for the night and going to family or to go to friends or whatever. It's just it's the how is really what is really important. And I agree with you. In these kind of talks, the how is not fair for me to tell you how to do it, because I would guess 95% of the people who listen to the how or read a book about the how, they will fail. That's why you go to any library or any bookstore, tons of books on how to improve your relationship, and they tell you the how. But if you don't have someone to walk you through it and facilitate and teach you, just like how we did math, right? We didn't learn math on our own. We didn't read a book and we just know what 2 + 2 was. So therefore, we learned how to do math, and then now we do it without the help. This is no different. You just need to have a teacher. You want to call him a counselor, you want to call him a coach, whatever you want to call him, but they need to be well trained, well prepared to facilitate that communication. And that's really what couple counseling is all about. We focus on the how. We first look at the what. What's the problem? What's causing these issues? But then we focus on the how. And then we build the skill on the how. Reason being that you cannot read a book and figure out how to do it, because almost all of the cases, what blocks us to implement the how is us.
It needs the human touch, sort of.
It does. It does. And sometimes my own beliefs is really what blocks me to do the how correctly. And I blame my partner. You're not doing it right. The book is saying you do this and you're supposed to do that. I did this, you do that. But how I did that is totally different from what the book is saying
Right.
that I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's where the disconnect happens. So I've had people who come to therapy who had tried books, who have tried to spend a lot of money. I mean, these books are not cheap, to be honest. The good ones. The cheap ones are just not effective at all. But you really need to whatchamacallit, you need that facilitator, the person, to understand both sides, unbiased. You cannot do this with your mom, and your mom can facilitate that, because your mom either is going to take your side, and most of the time they take the husband's side or the spouse's side, because they want to show the other person that they're not biased towards their daughter or their son, so they have to show that the support to the other person, so they can go extreme that way. Or they can be just mindful that this is my child, you cannot do this to my child, and they become defensive. So they can be that extreme or this extreme. So having a person to facilitate that knowledge, to teach you that knowledge, cannot be a family member, cannot be a friend. And again, a lot of people who tell me, "Oh, my friend told me this and I did that." It's like, how did that work for you? No, it didn't work out. Yeah, exactly. My friend told me to attend this seminar and do that webinar, do this book. That doesn't work. It really doesn't work. If it does work, short-lived, and the relapse become much stronger. And then they start to disbelieve in this books and all this relationship and counseling. There's like, oh, forget it, it's all not working, because they didn't do it right. Like when you go to school and you have difficulties with one of the subjects, who helps you in that subject?
A tutor.
The tutor. What do we call that center? The tuition center, right? So we go to tuition. Now, mommy and daddy don't help us. How come when I'm getting a problem with my relationship, mommy and daddy want to jump in and help? Right? Or my elder sibling or my younger sibling, and all of this, people become experts in relationship. So that's really what adds the fuel to the fire, because you already have a spark that started a small fire, and then the family can increase that fire to become a huge fire. So yeah, the how is totally different. So now we're just focusing on the what. What needs to be done is we need to open the channels of communication. We need to be open about this possibility of that both of you need to work on the relationship. Both of you need to work on the trust, or both of you need to work on the insecurity, because it could be it's not necessarily always trust. It could be insecure. I feel insecure. I'm not pretty. I'm fat. I'm too skinny. My hair is ugly. My eyebrows. Oh my goodness. A lot of people making tons of money from the eyebrows these days. Or my eyelashes. Or my this or my that. And they feel so insecure about their look. And they just saw this person, the spouse, saw her with a colleague. Whoa. That colleague is really, good looking, much better looking than me. And that causes insecurity. So every time she or he hears work, like, whoa, trigger, insecurity. So it could be trust, could be insecurity, right? So that could be another possibility.
Is there a possibility of overthinking?
Well, overthinking, tell me more. What does that mean?
Like you interpret every single detail and you try to fill in the gaps with your own suspicions rather than asking for the facts. Overthinking.
Yeah, that would be a personality trait. It's not a personality disorder, but that's a personality trait. There are reasons why it's there. It's helping the person to really understand more. But it really, really jeopardizes the relationship, the health of the relationship. Criticism also kills the relationship. Being defensive also helps the relationship. Yeah. So overthinking or dismissing the positive, all these things are. That's mainly assuming what I'm hearing from you. It's like filling the gap. It's like jumping
Assuming.
into conclusion.
Yeah, the
It's like,
assumption.
oh, so they're more important than you. That's the conclusion.
Mm.
I had to, take this meeting because I was late. Sorry for the date and all. Oh, so they're more important than you. So that's the conclusion. That's
Right.
jumping to conclusion based on assumptions.
And
Mm.
also, I think that uh, misinterpretation or purposeful misinterpretation of what the person says, your partner says something, but you kind of like interpret it in a very emotional way. I think that really jeopardizes people don't like to be misinterpreted.
Yeah.
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 Like you put words in my mouth and I didn't really say that, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah, that's
think
totally true, because if there is no proper listening, then the talk is useless. Talking is useless. If we have how many ears we have? We have 2 ears. We have one mouth. We need to communicate in that ratio. We need to listen twice as much as we talk. It's a very important ratio to keep in. But what happens between couples? Everybody's fighting for what I call airtime. Everybody wants to talk. They both talk over each other. They're not listening, and the airtime is just overloaded with many words, and nobody's listening anymore.
Mm.
Yeah. So we talked about trust. We talked about insecurity. What else could be causing that need for transparency? That like very open transparency. Anything else? Anything you guys can think about?
Maybe because the one they are with have cheated on them before.
Yeah, history. Yeah, there's some trauma.
Don't stay in the relationship.
Don't stay in a relationship. Well, because there's they've been together for a while, and there's the common there's a what do you call this, intimacy got built up between them, so it's not easy to let go.
Of course.
Yeah.
what's your opinion about a nuclear family and let's say the wife or the husband, either one cheated and they have children? Do you believe that the best solution is always to, as what Inchila suggested, is to leave and break up, or is it better to try to work together and find out reason why?
Honestly, I don't have an opinion, but most of the couples, they want to work on the relationship. But what happens is that when this kind of event happens for a while, and they don't do anything about it, and this continues, one of them would like to just bail out because they're finding the other grass is greener, and it actually feels much better feet. So therefore, I don't want to walk on your grass. I want to walk on that. So if you stay for too long with this, the status quo, and you don't want to rock the boat, well, you will not have a boat pretty soon if you keep, denying it or just ignoring. You need to do something about it, and then you can decide on it together. And that's what we call in counseling is discernment. The discernment. So they can both decide whether they want to stay together, or they want to separate, or they want to keep things as status quo. But that's a different type of counseling. So yeah, I don't have an opinion personally, to be honest. It's their decision that they need to decide what they need to do for their own good and their good for the children as well, because the children already know.
What's the priority?
Priority for what?
The good of the children or the good of the parents?
Well, they need to take care of themselves first. Because if they worked on themselves, what does that do? I can still see you if you put a notebook like that. I can still see you. What does that do? If they worked on themselves first, what would that do? How would that help?
I guess it would strengthen their relationship and heal wounds, heal traumas, and it can be better reflected on the kids.
Yeah, but why not start on the kids first?
No, it would be like the domino effect, right? Like you
This is
start.
lunch, huh? Yeah.
Sorry?
So this is lunch.
You distracted me.
Sorry. The listening is very important.
Yeah, well, do I
So,
remember?
the domino effect. Yeah.
Oh, right. Domino
listening.
effect.
I'm listening.
Thank you.
Listening lah.
So yeah, the domino effect. Like you start from the source, right? And once you're thinking it, all of them obviously like follow.
So you want to start at the source, and therefore that everything follows. Yeah, that's actually very accurate, very close to accuracy. What I had in mind as well, because you're also setting an example to the children. You're not just fixing the children; you're actually showing the children, yeah, we're not perfect, but we're working on it. And guess what? This is how you do it if this ever happens to you.
Right.
You just need to work on it. You don't give up on family. You don't give up on the relationship. You really need to work on it because your father is not perfect. Your mother is not perfect. All that, blah, blah, blah. So, because children really, most of the time they grow up, most of the children they grow up, they think their parents or like perfect. They don't make mistakes. And when that reality hits different from what they were expecting, then things kind of fall apart for them and the world crumbles. So that's really important to work on the relationship first, work on themselves, each other first, and the relationship. That helps the relationship, and that's a very good example that they're putting for the children as well.
Should parents stay even if they want to divorce just for the sake of the kid?
They want to stay what for the sake of the kids? They want to stay what?
Stay together.
Oh, that happens. I mean, again, that's their choice. If they want to keep things as status quo, that's their choice. It is possible. Of course, it needs common understanding. Sometimes there's like written contracts between them. Basically, the contract is really to put everything as they agreed on writing, so they don't forget what they agreed on, and then that's pretty much it. So then they can keep things just for the sake of the kids.
Would it affect the kids?
Well, the children would know, and it would have affected them as well. Yeah, they would know, and they will understand, and they probably will get stuck in the middle. It does impact them, and again, it is possible the parents can do that, but in terms of the kids, they would need to do extra work for the kids or with the kids, either by reaching out to professionals or talking to the children, and they just need to make sure that they're not using the children to take their sides. That's the most common thing that parents do. They try to convince the child it's your mother's fault or your father's fault. I am just an obedient, loving person, and look what he did to me or what she did to me. And that's where the kids are like, they're not gonna stick around. If any of the parent did that, they're not gonna stick around. That's for sure. I mean, I really don't know for sure, but that's very, very common. Very common. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. So how about if we were to say one of the things that are also needed to allow the need for the transparency and checking on other people's phones is that I think one of the things that are really needed for any relationship is the mutual respect. My needs are not more important than your needs, and your needs are not more important than my needs. But with that said, culture really has a big say. So we need to be mindful of culture, and religion can be part of a culture, right? So there's religious beliefs, there are cultural beliefs. We don't want to deny those. We want to allow this to exist. So whatever within the culture boundaries, whether it's a extended culture or whatever the couple chose for themselves to be the culture, they really need to keep that, because that's going to be the principle and the main ingredients to keep the relationship together, because that's like the boulder that is holding everything. So that's important. And what are the things that can be? I think we beat it to death. I cannot think of anything else. I would say one thing is actually like an indicator. If intimacy started to fade out, that's an indicator that something needs to be fixed. It's not a good. So intimacy is different than sex, right? I was told here in the culture that intimacy is the same as sex, but intimacy in English, at least where I come from, intimacy is different than sex. Intimacy is like really passionate friends, right? So that's really close, feeling that closeness. If that is not as good as it used to be, there needs to be some, you really need to act on it. Not react, but you need to act on it and kind of check what's happening.
How, for example, like when one partner transitions to, let's say, a full-time job,
Mm.
and he or she has commitments already, so the partner might feel like he or she has been rather cold, not enough time for me in the relationship. And what do we do? How do we face this transition in lives?
Yeah, I mean, this is just no different than, so this is a change in the relationship. So this is a change in the family system that impacts the relationship. Same thing with any relationship that might trigger the other person's insecurity or trust. So this is another change that impacts the dynamic and the quality time, the me time and the us time and all that good stuff. So it's really important again to build that connection, to allow that communication that you were referring to earlier. And that communication needs to be properly done. And both need to be agreeing on one decision, and the other person needs to support. So they both need to agree, and they both need to commit, however difficult it is. They need to commit to that. So they can decide on, let's do this for a year and see how it goes, because we really need the money. And I have to, I spend this time, I had to spend, I had to travel a lot. It could be, right? So that's gonna cause that
Drift,
distance.
sort of.
I'm sorry?
Drift, sort of.
Yeah, interrupted my thoughts. But anyway, where you been? Yeah, so that's basically what can be done is that when these things happen, that needs to be decided as a family. If you have children, the children need to be part of the family. I mean, part of the decision. So they're also aware. I mean, again, it depends on how old the child is. They might not understand really that you're gonna be gone for like a few days of the month, and you're not gonna be around. And they're used to having these quality time with you every night, and you say good night, and you hug them, and you kiss them, and you don't do that for a while. It can be quite impactful on the child's side. So talking about it, checking on that child. The tricky part is the child is not open to express because they don't want to make you feel bad, because you're a daddy and I'm a child, I'm nobody, so therefore I don't want to disrespectful, and that's because there's a big disconnect. And what the parents do is like, oh, okay, my child is okay. No, your child is not okay. Your child is not okay. They just don't know how to express it. So you need to be mindful when this happens. You really need to speak and assume what your child is saying, and you really need to speak for your child for yourself. If you were that age, what would you say? You're not gonna like it. So therefore, that's your child not gonna like it, but they're not expressing it. So therefore, I need to do something. Reaching out, making your time extra special together, talking about it, that you're not around. All these things can help the child to cope better with it. Same with the spouse.
Right.
Did I touch on that?
Yeah, you did.
Any thoughts on that? Any questions?
Yeah, you did make me remember a book that I think Jordan Peterson wrote, and it's about 12 rules of life. And one of the rules he said, I'm not sure whether it was rule number 10 or something. He said that relationships, you need to be intentional about them, and like in spending time, you have to actually not just let it go by and, oh yeah, I'm gonna work, and just let go of the flow. Rather, it's more of an intentional effort to continuously build the relationship and trust and communication together intentionally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that really resonated.
Yeah. I usually use being mindful in the relationship, being present. I use intentional communication. The communication, it needs really to be intentional, but I'm really interested to read this book. I'm not sure I read it, but it's a good reference that you mentioned here. That's really good stuff. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we end today's talk? Any questions? Any answers? All right. Well, this is the talk for today. You have any comments or questions, you can comment below or ask us. More than happy to address your questions. Until the next video.
Yeah.
Stay happy.